how are things going with you?
You know, all things considered, pretty good and a little crazy.
Where are you?
I'm in North County in San Diego, in Encinitas. Yeah, just you know, going. I think things calmed in my personal life here finally, but you know, pretty interesting national landscape. I think it's gonna shake out here for the good, for the better. But oh my gosh, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into it if you don't mind. David Bronner joins us for the High Time Psychedelic podcast, and it's really cool to talk to him, man. So you're just talking about your national. I'm in Canada, so I'm up here just north of Toronto.
Yeah, you're just in the show, man. You're like, holy shit. Yeah,
it's the best. It's the best reality show of all time.
Oh my God, dude, that's what he is, right? I mean, he's just this reality show fucking cat. Yeah. But
you know,
I mean, hopefully, yeah.
I was going to say it was a shame that they didn't learn from you 8 years ago on how to protest in Washington. I mean, that's the way to do it. You lock yourself in your own cage.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. They weren't very creative. Yeah, no, I mean, that was such a spectacle and obviously tragedy. But I mean, hopefully, the upside of all this is he's torpedoed himself for good, and maybe taken the Republican Party down with him for at least another couple terms. But yeah, I mean, now we got a 18-month window here with the Senate flipped. Hopefully the midterms, you know, we maintain Democratic control, and you know, but in this 18 months, you know, I mean, we were kind of pessimistic about any cannabis prohibition at the federal level with the Republican-led Senate, but now it just seems in reach. So, you know, and all kinds of other things, green lighting Oregon's psilocybin program, you know, obviously on the climate front and everything else. I mean, it's just, you know, the nightmare is over. So, yeah.
Is it hard, David? Is it hard for you? I mean, being such an advocate, and I think everyone knows your history from drug reform to protecting the environment to even things of, you know, where you know you're so good with your employees at Dr. Bronner soaps and magical soaps, and how you're very fair in pay and all. Like, you're just really a beautiful soul. But so when you watch what's going on with the divide in your country, beyond sort of, you know, now maybe some progressiveness coming, you know, towards the United States over the next, hopefully the next term here, is it hard for you though? Because I feel like you're very inclusive of everyone. I feel like the last thing you would want is this divide of certain people and you know, that this polarizing nation. Like, is that a difficult thing for you personally? Because I feel like you want togetherness.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think you know, unfortunately, Trump is, how do you say, very skilled at exploiting kind of the worst in human nature and stirring it up. But I think, like, one-on-one, when you like take Trump out of the equation, I mean, most people can get on in, well, I mean, obviously there is a deep divide, and the recent election, like, really was difficult. I mean, a lot of families, you know, just, geez, I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous what we're dealing with down here, and the kind of talking points that, you know, the Trump and Republicans were deploying. And yeah, it is depressing, you know, when like one half of the country is just spouting nonsense. You know, I mean, and it's really the leadership. I remember talking to somebody, you know, one of my family members, and talking about, you know, the fires that, you know, raged across the West Coast. You know, it's just like climate change, you know, Jesus, it's so obvious. And immediately it was like, yeah, Newsom isn't clearing the underbrush, you know, Governor Newsom here in California. And I'm like, you know, what, you know, like how does that, such an insane, like, ridiculous reality or distortion of reality, when you got Colorado on fire too, you know, it makes no sense whatsoever. But yeah, yet you know, they're just, so many people are just kind of parroting who's wearing the jersey, you know, and you know, unfortunately, Republicans need to get somebody who, you know, I mean, I do respect people of principle. I did grow up in a Reaganite household, and my dad was my central moral inspiration. You know, I mean, I do understand, like, the, you know, values of family and you know, charity and community and all that. But yeah, it's just become weaponized, and I don't know, there's like this whole media kind of, I guess, circuit that's just filled with nonsense. So yeah, that's depressing. But what's not depressing is sweeping the country here on our drug policy reform measures in this election cycle. And I hold out hope that as we integrate plant medicine, psychedelic therapy, psychedelics generally, along with cannabis, and as we destigmatize psychedelics and plant medicine, that just more and more people are going to heal up trauma and just kind of soften and become more compassionate and cool. And we'll have a psychedelically open citizenry pretty soon, and just enacting much more rational, compassionate policies and candidates. So I'm holding out hope, and but yeah, there's definitely things to be depressed about, but I guess overall I'm optimistic. Trump is, hopefully, I read or I watched I think it was the 13th. It's an amazing documentary, and it's about the 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves, and it's all about except for criminals, right? And then that was the loophole that Nixon exploited. So once Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement ended Jim Crow and segregation, then the new kind of form of racial control emerged through the drug war and the war on crime, the war on drugs, as like code for going after people of color and locking them up. And so this this documentary is just really compelling and just amazing. Highly recommend it. And there is a Black historian, professor, who in his comment was something along the lines that Trump is going to do more for race relations in this country than Obama ever could. Like Trump is going to obviate this like really deep systemic racist problem that we've got, and that we're nowhere near this kind of post-race society that maybe for a second we all thought we were in when Obama got elected. And so I think a lot of people have been doing some deep soul searching, and hopefully and with the spectacle in the Capitol, hopefully a lot of people are getting a real check on what's going on. I mean, those guys, that could be Hitler in the brown shirts, in early days, and just look what that like built into. And yeah, I don't want to paint, obviously, and people aren't that bad, but nonetheless, that's how, because my family, I've got the Holocaust in my family, and my granddad, Dr. Bronner, his parents were deported and killed, and the factory was nationalized. And the way Hitler came up with a bunch of these brown shirt thugs, it's just kind of this mob that just exploited. And it's degrees, but Trump just seems to have that same kind of just race baiting, exploiting these kind of like us versus them divisions and just riding the power. So hopefully just this whole just ridiculousness that's just happened this week is going to just really obviate this. We don't need all of the country, but we just need a solid majority to get it, and hopefully that's happening.
Are you optimistic?
I tend to be. I feel like we do have the solutions in hand. We got to transition agriculture globally to regenerative organic practices, get off the synthetic pesticide and fertility, industrial ag that's just, ruining the world, and, reduce our meat consumption dramatically, and get the animals out of their cages, out of these factory farms, and integrated back into farming landscapes, and start replicating nature, wild ecosystems where you have a sustainable balance of plant and animal life. And there's a farming revolution underway. I feel like we've got the tech here. For clean energy, we just need the right policy, the right leadership to rapidly transition away from fossil fuels. And regenerative agriculture at scale can sequester huge amounts of atmospheric carbon. Soil's the largest land-based sink for carbon. Actually, when you look at generally industrial agriculture will destroy soil. It like rips all the life, all the fertility out of it, depletes the carbon to 0%. So all that carbon gets, all the life, all the soil's a magical ecosystem of microbiota, of fungi and mycorrhizae and bacteria and nematodes and all this. And when you feed the soil and you take care of it right, you're going to get nutritionally dense food, and you can make everything you need, all your clothes and your ingredients for your soap, in this totally regenerative way, like a wild forest. There's no synthetic chemical inputs. It's totally self-regenerating. So, we know how to do that. And when you take these principles and apply them to even the most depleted industrial disaster wasteland, monocrop, GMO, weed killer blasted, dead in our dirt, and you adopt like basic regenerative principles of cover cropping and smart crop rotations and managed grazing, and you do this within 5 to 10 years, that soil comes back completely back to life. You get the carbon back up to 4 or 5%. And as that carbon content and life comes back, that's sucking all that atmospheric carbon back down in the ground just through natural forms of photosynthesis. Takes carbon dioxide, makes it into carbohydrates, turns into root shoots and leaves. 20 to 40% goes into the soil, and a portion of that becomes long-term recalcitrant humus, which is how those really rich deep topsoils formed in the first place. So we have the technique to really draw down atmospheric carbon. We need to stop putting carbon up there, but we have the solution to draw it down at scale. We don't need these fancy technologies to like suck carbon out of the air, which this farm, 1/3 of their surface is under farmer rangeland management. If you do it right, you can actually sequester huge amounts of carbon. And yeah, on race relations, obviously it's a huge moment of reckoning, of national reckoning. But I like to feel like with the plant medicines and psychedelics and everything moving, and the ability to heal the deep trauma and open us up, that this can be the last generation that has systemic racism, the last generation of horrible income inequality and poverty. So, I'm, 2040, 2050, I don't know. We either make it or we don't, but I feel like
no pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting to hear you talk, David, because I think we're born in the same year. I'm born in 1973. So,
right on.
I always think of people as our generation, just an interesting sort of mix of growing up without sort of the technology, but being able kind of to be young enough to adapt to it pretty quickly. But knowing what the world was like with true connection, with like really living in the moment, this true connection, getting outside, riding your bikes. Not to say that doesn't happen these days, but there was really nothing else to do. Maybe read a book and study, but we play a video game, but they were very, very sort of basic to do. And I guess what I'm getting at is you're this visionary. You see things, things, you have facts behind everything you're talking about. Is it frustrating for you to see people of our ilk, of our age group and older, not adapting quick enough, whether they're protecting corporate greed or like long-term sort of, different business sectors and stuff, like the man of significance such as yourself that has, obviously been successful, but given back so much. Does it frustrate you that more people aren't doing what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Let's just take cannabis as an example. That's been a very disappointing. I think a lot of us, on the activist side, we were just wanting to end prohibition and the disaster of shredding people's lives and, the whole racist inequality of it. And, get our comrades, brothers, sisters out of jail and restore their communities. But weren't really focused on the upside, on the legal kind of market, what the legal market was going to look like. And unfortunately, the people and interests that were kind of not that conscious. And you don't really see like health, wellness, spirituality at the center of the cannabis industry. It's there, but it's, it's kind of fringe. And we're, we're doing what we can. We've got a project to help cannabis farmers, some of their certification, in the soil, under the sun, no chemicals, fair labor, and to give them a consumer-facing standard, kind of like the organic program, to connect with consumers and kind of stop this or try to help them compete against this huge industrial takeover. But to that earlier point you were making too, the disconnection, right? The people are disconnected from nature, from each other. Just the media saturation, and yeah, you really got to make an effort to get out. And in my case, I get to go surfing with my partner, and I'm not on Facebook. I just kind of, I'm already pretty plenty distracted. So yeah, you got to like make the effort to connect and be in touch. And yeah, again, I think, yeah, there's a lot to be depressed about, and a lot of lack of consciousness, but, I think the models are there, and I think that, I don't want to like put everything on psychedelic integration, but I mean, it's a host of practices, meditation, mindfulness, all these things that just bring people, just bring more consciousness and mindfulness and compassion into their life, into their choices and relationships. So yeah, I mean, hopefully this can really start to happen. There's definitely, I mean, there's plenty of examples how it's not happening, but I think there's plenty of examples of it happening. And for me, I'm just like, focused on the positive, and, whether, and like with Bush, I mean, that was a nightmare, but we made real progress in medical cannabis and set things up for recreational, gay marriage. We can make real progress on social issues, even with like pretty terrible administrations. And there's like a lot of really much better stuff now than when we were born, so, just hopefully things can accelerate. I mean, things definitely do need to accelerate.
Well, and what I think full disclosure, by the way, being Canadian, I do feel like these things have come quicker, obviously, legalization of cannabis, things like gay marriage. Like it is interesting that way.
Healthcare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it's so it's weird from, in context to hear this stuff because, I think there are still very big frustrations from a lot of Canadians, but not as many frustrations as there would be from Americans in general. Typically, no one's ever going to be happy with a state-run country, but these are the realities of life right now. But I think we're afforded maybe these sort of much more opportunities based on your, like you said, healthcare and openness and on this kind of stuff, legal cannabis. And the other full disclosure I was going to get at is, whether or not, and it's an interesting place for me to be, is that I'm the CEO of a publicly traded company that's dealing with magic truffles in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Right.
And which, of course, I know you have a whole history within the Netherlands, which really, and I'm always kind of caught behind this rock in a hard place in a way, which is like my whole message. And I'm not an advocate, and I'm not a pioneer, and I haven't got arrested for protesting, what I think, people should have and have access to. What I am, though, is just someone who over the last couple of years, who was a media radio show host, really, who fell in love with psychedelics, much like you probably did back in, I think, 1993 or whenever, you first went to Amsterdam. And,
Yeah.
and,
95, but 93 was when I in
sorry.
college.
Okay. And ultimately, for me, it was always about like meeting so many people, which I've been blessed at doing, and listening to the struggles of people. Like there is this mental health crisis, and just a deep dive for me was learning about what potentially could make change. I don't touch big pharma stuff. I don't touch any medication. I don't touch, I don't even touch Tylenol. And the more I researched in only a few years, I'm like, this is it. Like I hopped over to the Netherlands, fell in love with the product, started making my own. And I want this message of responsible and educational use to get out there. But I just think that every adult, responsible adult, should have the right to choose for themselves. Based on that it's a natural product here. And what do you like? Is that your thoughts on this? Like, and granted, sorry to keep rambling on. There is a capitalistic side to it. Yeah, full disclosure, has to be when you're a publicly traded company. Like you have to, unfortunately, I think that way in a way. It doesn't mean you can't give back and stuff, but I just think everyone should have access. Is that sort of what you think about psychedelics, especially psilocybin?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, and I went and check you out a little bit, and that's awesome. And yeah, I think we want to drive to a society where you have availability and access and education, responsible education. So what we feel like there's like kind of three primary ways we're integrating psychedelics into society. I'm on the board of MAPS, and we're moving MDMA through FDA approval process for treatment-resistant PTSD, and that's also happening for psilocybin. But I mean, as far as MAPS goes, I mean, that was always a tactic. It's not the be-all, end-all. We're not like only about FDA approved, medical pharma model for psychedelics at all. That was just a way to break into the culture, generate the clinical studies, and but now. At Burning Man, our camp hosts the Endo Project, which is a psychedelic harm reduction. Just if you're having a bad experience, you can go to this safe space and have people kind of hold the space and have a good experience. And then Decriminalized Nature is just what happened in Denver. We supported Kevin Matthews and Duffy and friends there to decriminalize mushrooms. That was just a huge move. And then and then Oakland. We weren't involved in Oakland, but that was amazing because they did it legislatively. They didn't do it by ballot measure. And then we were, and that was Santa Cruz, Ann Arbor, and DC. We were very involved in the DC campaign. So we were actually the same. Adam Eidinger, our social action director there, was the campaign manager that legalized weed there in 2014. And then he teamed up with an amazing lady, Melissa Lavasani, who healed postpartum depression with ayahuasca ceremony. So I think Decriminalized Nature is a little bit of a misnomer because decriminalize, we're also a big fan and supporters of broad-based treatment, not jail, decriminalize all drugs. And Decriminalized Nature is actually about legalizing ceremony and ceremonial healing. It's right, obviously right to grow in your home, but it's really about ceremonial healing, and I think especially with ayahuasca. So that's really important to integrate. And then the therapeutic model that's outside the medical pharma model, so that kind of creating this container, which I think is very important as a model. Not that it should be the only way to access psychedelics at all. That's obviously not the right way to do it. But I do feel that having a well-structured therapeutic model is going to be the way that the majority of the population that's psychedelically naive and skeptical, and they're not going to access a decrim kind of ceremony. I can't say, hey mom, look, they decrimmed, here's some mushrooms and there's a ceremony. It's just not what she's going to do. But if there's like a well-designed therapeutic program, like what happened in Oregon, then that's kind of for the broad swath of the population and all of us too. It's basically about kind of replicating what's coming out of the Johns Hopkins and NYU studies and creating that really careful set and setting, lots of preparation, integration, and but like breaking it out of like the medical pharma model where you have to have a qualifying diagnosis of treatment-resistant depression or whatever, but recognizing all of us can benefit from psychedelics therapy. We're all struggling, and it's such a huge ally and help for all of us. So what Oregon did with Measure 109 is make it available to all adults who can safely benefit. And then alongside 109 was 110, and that, we're the major supporters of 110, and that was broad-based treatment, not jail, decriminalize all drugs.
Didn't Zuckerberg donate to 110? Didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did $500,000, he did $1 million.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That there's a really powerful coalition. And, people don't realize that what 110 did, some people were like, oh, you didn't decriminalize psychedelics or enough. And it's like, well, we decriminalized 40 units of LSD. That's like, we can have 500 mic units, it's like, it's pretty rad. 12 grams of mushrooms, it's not much. But, it's enough for a personal, like heavy, you can go pretty deep. And, but that being said, what is missing in Oregon is like the basic allowance for home growing and ceremony. So that, we're not done in Oregon till we get that. And that'll then be the complete picture. And, Washington is, also moving in all the different dimensions. Colorado's moving in all the dimensions. California's moving, and it's just like, it's going to be 22, is it going to be 24? But, it's all happening. So, yeah.
5 years from now, where do you see natural-based plant, not that you can call them medicines, but remedies, natural-based plant remedies? Where do you see that 10 years from now, David?
Yeah,
hypothetical questions, by the way. Is that a stupid question? Do you hate I don't normally ask hypothetical questions.
Oh yeah, I think it's just like fully integrated, and it's, almost like 5-10 years. It depends where you are. It'll be like Cannabis. Like if you're kind of in the right state, it's awesome. If you're not, it's not. But but I think it'll happen faster than Cannabis, because it's really, it's going to kind of remain in, I think, how do you say, healing and wellness are going to remain central to the psychedelic movement in a way that Cannabis, maybe it's kind of got a little away from. Not that it's not present, but it just seems to not be as front and center. and I think politically that makes it easier um, to move. And then also the veteran advocates, the veterans who are getting their healing their trauma, that really makes it an incredibly powerful bipartisan issue. Um, so I mean, I know, like, I mean, there's real movement in Texas and just some high level allies on the Republican side. And so yeah, and I know Colorado's probably going to be a place where they're, you'll get more truffles in a dispensary kind of model. Every state's coalition's got their own, I would say, dream. But I mean, all that's subject to political reality. I mean, Oregon, we won 56. I mean, that's convincing. But I mean, it was a very, very strict kind of therapeutic medical program. It was kind of the first, and definitely there's a lot of misinformation and stigma and concern. But as we, but then that opens up the space. Just like the medical cannabis trajectory, like medical first, and then you just kind of expand the access. So I would say, depending on the state, you'll probably be able to get your truffles in dispensary eventually. I think, though, it's really important to bring that therapeutic model in first, or alongside, depending on what the political opportunity is. But that I mean, it's great to be able to go to the shop and buy truffles for all of us who are already comfortable doing that. But I mean, a therapeutic program is kind of what I think is needed to really bring healing to the biggest, how do you say, amount of people. Yeah.
And as you mentioned, healing needs to be done right now. I mean, there is a mental health crisis going on right now. And listen, I hate to sound self-serving here. I really do. That's not the intention of talking to you at all. Based on sort of what we're doing over here at the company. But we believe in that, right? Which is, listen, I'm not a capital markets guy. I'm not, I'm not a, I'm Wall Street or Bay Street guy. I'm just a person who has my ear to the street and knows friends and people and artists and creative types and everything. And when I first got in this, the thing I thought to myself is sort of what you're saying is, if you're providing access, which they do, as we know in the Netherlands, how can you provide access responsibly? For instance, to the point where you probably think it's cool. We even created like a virtual reality headset. I actually have it just over there. You put it on, you get like a 4-minute education on psilocybin, on truffles, on the origin.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
It mimics the feeling even of microdosing, like where colors become vibrant and you have like interactive body movement within what we call the wisdom truffle. You do a dance and it's an extension of yourself. And it was created by a really wonderful lady, Sarah Hashkes, who's a scientist at Radix Motion, and she knows all about psilocybin way more than I would ever know. And it was about, making you learn, but also feel comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you shouldn't buy it, actually. Like, if you don't kind of like what you're learning and stuff. And I think this is a really important aspect that, where whether it's our company or everybody, government authorities is to be able to say, stop this stupid bullshit stigma here. And if we really want to weigh statistics, let's compare it to alcohol here and how damaging that is. Okay. And just go, hey, how can we not look and present something towards individuals that we clearly understand need this now, but do it. Everyone should be doing this carefully. And that's what I love about your message. That's what I love about the Pioneers message. I guess my only fear is I hope that never gets protective, meaning, like, I think it's okay that you bring more people into this space to go, hey, I think you have an opportunity. And I love how you mentioned veterans. I just had a Coast Guard email me today and said, listen, he's had a lot of struggles and things he's seen as a Coast Guard, and talk about how, psilocybin has helped him in small dosages. And these messages, you must get a million. It feels good to hear that people are doing well. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, and it's like Amsterdam. I mean, that's kind of the model, right? Because you've got the synthesis, you've got the retreat model, and then you got like, hey, I can go get a truffle and go in the forest and have my experience. So, I mean, yeah, that's definitely where we need to be driving to. And yeah, I mean, and decriminalization, and it obviously doesn't allow sale, but does allow home grow, and would say you can buy lettuce, or would say, like, in DC you can't buy pot, but you can buy a $40 pizza, and just comes with a bag, so yeah, I mean, so I think the decriminalization model is kind of a way to get there, before there's like a full-blown like legal kind of market. Yeah, and obviously there's drama in the movement and personalities and stuff, but I think that most of us share the same goals. And I actually wrote a piece, and it's in the MAP Spring Bulletin, 2020 Spring Bulletin, um, and it was called "The Unified Theory of Psychedelic Integration," and it talks about kind of the major kind of movements, and it's the FDA track, the therapeutic model, and then the decriminalized nature, and how they all complement and work together, and alongside broad-based Portugal style treatment, not jail, where and that, I mean, the end goal for that is safe supply, and that's but that's, I mean, Canada's way further ahead, but still way further to go, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard even for me. I mean, it's to think about, wow, safe supply of heroin and meth and what, but when you just look at, like, so you said alcohol, and like, we went through it as a society. I mean, there's like nothing more dangerous than alcohol and getting hooked on alcohol. But if you make it illegal, then you just turn it over to the criminal syndicates, and you just get the mobs running the show. The blood's in the streets. This is a disaster. So it's all about harm reduction. And I mean, I would rather have addicts be able to manage their situation with like a daily maintenance dose of heroin or meth, and just until they're ready to get into the Ibogaine clinic, and have that right there, and then just completely remove the black market and criminal syndicates. But that's probably 10, 20 years away. But it's amazing that we're now at the place of decriminalizing, at least, so addiction is not a crime, and you're not being tossed in jail. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wonder, and if COVID, because of what's going on right now, if it's the government's responsibility to really start to try to fast track some of this stuff. Because I don't know about you, but I just feel also
Yeah.
a younger generation is much more adapt to looking at natural substances as opposed to synthetics, and as opposed to big pharma and prescribed medications that have been proven not to work. Let's be honest, a lot of them, and I just feel like it's a government's responsibility to carefully listen to individuals who are coming out. And by the way, getting it illegally all the time anyway, let's be honest, right? Like, if they want it, but then going on social and proudly displaying, this wearing it as a badge on their sleeve, saying, I'm proud user, and by the way, this is what anecdotally it does for me. And I just feel like it's a government's duty at this point to make sure that their citizens are doing well. And it's a frightening time. I got two little children, and I always think, like, is their future Mad Max, or is their future a little bit more of a fairy tale? Like, how do we figure this out together? But it does start with governments. Are they listening?
Well, I mean, we're in the very beginning stages. I mean, I think, I mean, there's still like such a huge education gap with just most of the population, and I think, I mean, it's rapidly changing. As MAPS and MDMA gets close to approval, and psilocybin, I mean, those are going to be watershed moments in the culture. And then Oregon's psilocybin program, that therapeutic program, as we're really optimistic now that we got Biden and a Democratic Congress, that Oregon's program will go into effect. And I think as people see the sky doesn't fall, and hopefully you start to get some real hard statistical data about mental health rates, improvements in depression and addiction and PTSD and population levels, I think that's going to be what it takes. But once that happens, I think, yeah, you'll rapidly see, mega shifts in policy. So.
In your eyes, do you see contraindications about fast tracking this stuff?
Yeah, no, I mean, if we could wave a magic wand and put LSD into every single communion wafer, no, I mean, obviously you got to get set and setting and never dose anybody when they're not.
Yeah.
Look, but yeah, I mean, so long as we do it in a way where you're getting a good education and how to have an optimal experience, then yeah, I think, that's the dream. If we could just have like a public service announcement: here's how you optimize your set and your setting. Here's a bag of mushrooms, or a truffle that's tasty and ready to go.
They are tasty, aren't they? They really are. Like, the truffles are very tasty. Um,
Yeah.
what do you like? Do you refer to stories of seeing great success, whether it's friends or someone you got connected with who's? I mean, I mean, I don't know if you disclose some of that stuff, but you must have seen such positive results with it yourself or other people. Is that stuff you care to share?
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. And I often do. I mean, psychedelics have been, huge allies in my life to help set me on my path and realize the transcendent ground of being and the love and the light at the heart of existence. And, even in the midst of all the suffering and absurdity, and somehow that's the truth. And it's so awesome. And, yeah. And, realizing, in Amsterdam, just had some mega experiences and died a couple ways into that love and light, realizing what my granddad was talking about, Dr. Bronner, who was all about all the faith traditions that the world are pointing at this transcendent source, which didn't make a lot of sense to me growing up. But instantly I was like, wow, you're right. And amazing. Um, and yeah, and, in that same experience, I mean, so I was in a club in Amsterdam in the Matzo. And, yeah, I remember, well, there's different phases to it, but just accounting for like the mega one when I just like did not want to be this kind of petty, jealous, stupid guy kind of in the way of the light and love of my then partner, and just like seeing how beautiful kind of, I don't know, there's a book I'm reading right now, Women Who Run with the Wolves, and it's rad, and it's about just the wolf and what's his name? Herman Hesse wrote Steppenwolf, which is hugely influential in the psychedelic movement. It's kind of about just the wolf soul, just the eros, the awesomeness, the life that wants to love and live and be ecstatic and dance and be awesome in the world. I mean, that's the soul in all of us, and just wants to be all of it and be beautiful and be awesome. And just realizing, I was just the part of me that was, in the way of that. I was like, dude, better you die than be in the way of that. And in dying, like, was embraced into the love and the light, like on the mega level. And coming out of it, it's like, I mean, I'm like, my immediate question was like, well, wait a minute, God, like, that's awesome. But right now there's like rape, there's murder, there's like all kinds of horrible shit going on. What's up? And then I was microscoped into nothing. And the self evolved is the capital S self of all being, like all life, just living and dying and being and all of it, way beyond explanation or comprehension. Just the I am that I am. Self can do to self what self is self. It's like all one deal, and it's suffering and it's being it, it's living it, dying it. It's all of it is in the self. But then I saw Jesus with his back to me, like stepping in, like all calm and compassionate, not trying to explain it and not complaining about it, just like stepping in. And, and I was like, wow, I want to be like that. I want to just get down. I want to serve and just, wow. And then on further reflection, realizing that that was the answer. It's like, that's like, as we, like that, the incarnation of that, Christ energy, like that soul energy, Buddha consciousness, whatever. It's not about any one faith tradition. What the divine will meet you in whatever way most appropriate to you, I think, when you're ready. Um, and but the answer is like, that's it. I mean, like, we're that part of the divine incarnated in here. It's that divine spark can come to life in us, and we can honor it and feel it. And that's not like I'm vibrating in that way most of the time, like maybe every once in a while, I mean, most of the time I'm not, but that you try, and the lessons you learn from it, you just try to respect and honor. Like, that's what's going to stop all the rape and the murder and the fucking, all the horrible shit in the world. And that was kind of like the answer to the question. I was like, what up? And it's like, dude, it's like, you're there, you get, it's up to us. We're that part of the self that's gonna, make it way better, the heaven on earth and all that.
And it's funny because some people might go, well, that sounds corny. Let's be honest, right? And until you try or experience or open up or speak to people, and whether it's micro or macro doses, but like at least open your mind to learning about it without even trying it. It's all these things, read books. watch videos, go on social media, you know, just hashtag psilocybin or psychedelics and see what people are talking about and saying them. And I guess, do you ever get stereotyped just based on, listen, you're Harvard graduated, you're, you know, run a multi-million-dollar business, you know, super successful. Is it an interesting combination for you to be so loving and so genuine and so authentic, but also, just have a stereotypical background as a business person? And, you know, like, does that ever get in the way? Do people ever judge you for that?
A like a CEO shouldn't be like, rambling on about the psychedelic
Kinda,
experiences.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like you're so open
yeah,
and honest. It doesn't. Someone said, "Oh,
yeah,
that's going to hurt my
absolutely.
business," you know.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's been a project in life. I mean, I'm way more open than I was 10 years ago, and 10 years before that. I mean, it's been a process of, um, it's kind of like the cannabis trajectory. Initially, it was industrial hemp and medical marijuana, and then, and then you just like my joke. I never actually said it to a reporter, but back when we were fighting the DEA on industrial hemp 20 years ago, and it was protracted litigation. They purported after 9/11 to reinterpret the Controlled Substances Act to ban all hemp imports from Canada. So all of a sudden, all the hemp seed oil for our soap was supposedly Schedule 1, and it's this ridiculous situation. So we're in this big battle, and reporters would we'd be talking to them, and they're like, "Well, isn't this a stalking horse for marijuana? Isn't this like the camel's nose under the tent?" And the official answer, we always said was like, yeah, some of us may support any marijuana prohibition, but a lot of us are farmers and business people who want nothing to do with that, just about non-psychoactive cannabis for fiber and seed and to make really beautiful products and sustainable agriculture, blah blah. But the secret answer was no, get it right. This is about LSD. So, yeah,
Awesome.
and so we're getting there, and it's like I've been able to now say that right now. It's like I could tell that to not most reporters, but
Yeah, I'm not a reporter. I mean,
yeah,
I'm just
but
yeah.
almost, I mean, almost.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I talk pretty not to that extent openly, but really open up, in a more sober, serious way about how beneficial the psychedelic experience has been. And yeah, I mean, I think we timed it right. So, we're pushing the envelope, and at this point, we just did our Heal Soul campaign, which was we changed the court labels on our courts to be all about psychedelic therapy and healing, about different medicines, different conditions, and how they treat, and communicating in a way my mom's church group can receive. So my brother, company president Mike Bronner, that was his term, but nonetheless, it's pretty spicy. Like all of a sudden, I mean, we're sold in Walmart, Walgreens, Loblaws, I mean, we're everywhere. And all of a sudden we had this, Heal Soul label. It's all about psychedelic healing. And, I was pretty confident. Like, I was like, wow, this is going to be the most activist, badass thing we've ever did. But, we got to be ready to swap in our regular labels once we get, half of our retailers, like, squawking. And, but we didn't get one complaint.
Wow.
Like not one complaint. Like, and it just shows like, wow, the cult, we've timed it right. The culture's moving so fast that, if we tried to do that 2 years ago, even, let alone 10 years ago, I mean, that would have been just like crazy. And it's interesting because like when we put hemp in the soap back in 99, that was like a way, and putting hemp on our label, that was way more controversial than talking all about psychedelic healing. And, so it's been a process, I would say. And I'm much more open. And I think, I think, how do you say, it's kind of like the gay trajectory, that kind of, what was it? Like there was some gay bashing bill back in the 80s, and then it was defeated with the call to, it was like, come out wherever you are, let your family know. If you're a teacher, you're a nurse, you're a what, they need to know. Your friends and family need to know that, this image they have of gay people, they need to know it's your brother, your sister, your friend, and that's the same as people are honest, open and honest about psychedelic experience in a way that's not like some outrageous dare commercial, and just how beneficial and healing it is. I mean, that, just that, how do you say, those honest conversations, and that's what's de-repressing the culture and destigmatizing the culture. So yeah.
It's interesting too. I think a little bit to add to that, David. Maybe we always look at sometimes social media as the cesspool. Really, it can be really negative and really controversial because it's always kind of stirring both sides to get at each other. But there is a lot of openness where people will talk. I sort of alluded to it earlier, and I think that really helps. It helps in education because it's just individuals talking and openly talking, and then it helps form communities and it helps expand the communities. And I always think that with this, I hope that there's not just sort of a one psychedelic community, if that makes sense. I just hope it's that doesn't sort of block it from people just wanting to feel comfortable to discover it themselves and not worried about having to fit in, even wearing a tie-dye shirt, for example. Like it could just be someone in a suit who's comfortable doing it, or an athlete that maybe not wouldn't have thought to use a traditional plant-based medicine as opposed to maybe something to help them heal on an injury. So that's what I hope the goal is here, is that everyone can share whatever your background, whatever your age, talk about this stuff to make people feel comfortable. And that's kind of like I'm trying to look at the positives of social media, which there's very little.
No, 100%. And you're right. I mean, it's an amoral technology and can be used for good or bad. And people being able to share, you're just talking about athletes. I mean, I'm good friends with Daniel Carcillo,
Mm.
former NHL, what he's called the Carbon.
He's a good dude.
Just
He's a good dude.
super hard and gnarly, right? And just so beautiful. And he healed up, debilitating traumatic brain injury and depression and trauma with high dose mushroom, and very open and honest about it. And he was just on was it HBO Real Sports with Brian Kimball, or him and like these mixed martial artists and other pro athletes, and yeah, and and veterans, similarly being open and honest about their healing and their stories. So yeah, I mean, I put on a tie-dye shirt. I mean,
No,
whatever. No, it's no, I get it, because I mean, I'll put on the suit if I feel like that's more appropriate, but I'll still tell my truth, depending on who the audience is. But yeah, I mean, I think, and it is true though that I'm, I'm not the spokesperson. I mean, I can, whatever. I'm talking to my peers in the movement is great, but as far as like a campaign for therapy, like in Oregon that we were running, it wasn't me or anybody like me who was talking to the, in our commercials, in our paid media or in our earned media. I mean, it was veterans, it was, people who had gotten their lives back from end of life anxiety. It was hospice workers, really witnessed this, and that people wouldn't judge, like, oh, you just like to whatever, go to a Grateful Dead concert or whatever, just yeah, I mean, so that's important, obviously, to make sure that as a movement, it just depends on who the audience is and who's the appropriate messenger and message, and being smart about that for sure.
Kind of an interesting thought I just had pop in my head, and I hope you don't mind I hope it doesn't come across uncomfortable if I ask you it, but does it feel good to know that you've worked hard, you made a lot of money, and that you have money to give back, like a measure, 110 or measure one, like donating? Like, is it okay to take pleasure from that, from giving back?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think about money I mean, I think about it in terms of energy, and that. So at Bronner's, our model is we cap all our executive compensation at 5 times our lowest paid position, and then all profits we don't need for the company we give to the activist causes and charities that we're involved in. And I mean, that generates a whole lot of earned media for us. So it's in a way, I mean, that's not like we're not like, as far as cause marketing goes,
you're not trying to exploit that. It just happens. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, but we're smart about, making sure we're getting brand recognition and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, ultimately it's about like just a virtuous cycle of just generating profit to put behind, progressive social change. So yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that we're able to do that. And yeah, I think it's totally cool. I think it's a good feeling to be able to, like, support allies and coalitions who are, rocking it, but just need some firepower, and yeah, and, provide some strategic support. So yeah.
What kind of future do you see, being from the soap business, do you see with sort of like a psilocybin based type of product? Could you see tinctures? Could you see topicals? Could you see anything like that, based on the natural product itself?
Probably not. I mean, just given, I mean, we're a family business, and my brother, Mike, he's awesome, but He's not quite on the psychedelic train as I am. Um, and, you know, we have to be careful, like how we extend the brand and, you know, not too far too fast. Um, I mean, who knows where things may go in the future, but yeah, I mean, like, so like the supplement kind of health and wellness kind of stuff. I mean, it's not, you know, we're not in there with any product right now. Um, and, you know, as far as like cannabis, like I do have, we did start a nonprofit, Brother David's. It's a nonprofit brand that exists to support Sun and Earth certification and support the outdoor small scale cannabis craft farmers. Um, but it's not under Dr. Bronner's. So, you know, probably if we did something, and you know, I should say we are opening up an impact investing arm. So generally all of our excess profits have been for philanthropy, but this is, you know, and it's mostly like, it's pretty small and just supporting symbolically some, you know, just some key players. And we're going to do it through a nonprofit investing vehicle. So it's clear that we're not, you know, personally trying to profit, but more to just kind of tag, you know, we really like this clinic. They've got a great model of access, you know, like they have a sliding scale fee, and we want to see this expand and, you know, be the kind of model for therapeutic access, or, you know, whatever. And so, yeah, but it would never be, probably would never be under Bronner's. So it would just be like through other, supporting other rock stars rocking it.
We'll get it through Bronner's one day anyway. In 20 years, you know, everyone's gonna, you know, we'll see. You know, like it'll be much more open then.
Yeah.
Let's. I don't. I sort of haven't planned. I don't really plan anything. I just kind of talk here. But if you could do with the right set and the right setting, and you know the right experience, obviously, is there? Have you thought of like who you would love to go into a deep sort of experience with in
Well,
psychedelics?
yeah, well, wait a minute. Your cat just like did the same deja vu thing. I think that there's a glitch in the matrix, dude. We got a cat. Right.
Don't trust me. My dog's here. My kids will be screaming in a moment too. I apologize, but they all just came
No
in.
problem. My dog was just barking. But yeah, let's see. Going deep with, oh, wow. I guess maybe, wow. Einstein and Jesus and
Wow,
Martin Luther King, something like that. Yeah.
that's
But,
brilliant. You know,
or Terrence, yeah,
I
Terrence.
so
Yeah.
okay. I was going to say Einstein. You know, there's I steal a line from him all the time. He said he had no special talents. He was only passionately curious, and I
Right
just love
on.
that line because I feel that. And in a way, it's kind of what I think like psychedelic sometimes stands for. It's like it adds to your curiosity. Like it takes away from sometimes your own thought, living in this own little world, and like you're curious by things that you now are actually looking at and discovering. And I've always liked it about people, just being curious about what they do and try to learn from them and try to be educated from them. And I always think that like if the more people would to be honest, I think we're a very selfish culture these days. Like and it saddens me because, and listen, I was young and selfish too, and the older you get, you know, you I think you want to do more and think about yourself less and ask people more questions, and in a way I did that for a career. But I just think that that's what it stands for me. It's like again, being passionately curious, getting out of this little tiny bubble really that we waste a lot of our years in. And that's why I think it's so important, because the more you sort of know and the more you learn, I think the better off, the more fulfilled your life is.
Yeah, well, and what you were just saying there, it's just like, you know, we live in a miracle. I mean, like, it's just like this incredible transcendent miracle of beyond belief. It's so beautiful and amazing, but just our ordinary consciousness is like completely taking it for granted as if we know what the fuck's going on. And, you know, and then when you take a medicine, you know, you get out of that ego consciousness of, you know, it's just kind of got it already all figured out. And you're like, you don't got nothing figured out. It's just this miracle. Wow. You know, and you're just, you know, just present to it, and you're just, it's just coming in and pouring into you. And yeah, so it's a blessing. And I wanted to also say a little more esoteric, but there's this guy Olaf Stapledon. Highly recommend reading him. He's a British science fiction author, but basically a philosopher in the 30s who wrote Last and First Men and Star Maker. And Last and First Men, it's about humanity So basically it's narrated by Olaf, but he's channeling one of the last men in 5 billion years in the future, who's telling them all the future history of humanity, and there's all of our fucking ups and downs, and just like how, you know, planetary awakening, but then we fuck it up, and you know, just like, just amazing. It's just amazing in scope and theme, and just the human condition and mind and consciousness and the stars, and then Star Maker was the sequel, and that's like out of control, and it's just like kind of builds off Last from First Man. It's just like planetary level beings, kind of, you know, like awakening and being in mega relationship, and then galactic level awakenings, and then, you know, eventually building to the transcosmic, and it's just so huge and amazing, but he just goes really deep in a lot of dimensions and in ways. So we'll have stapled in.
It's scary though. It's scary, isn't it? How self-sabotaging humans are, though, right? I feel like there's a lot of that.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time, dude. Like I'm in my own way. Like that's my number one like project. Try to get out of my own way. Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, listen, I don't want to take too much of your time, and I just like we're, you know, we're so impressed, right? It's so amazing when people, really, it is amazing. And I've never had the balls to kind of do the kind of stuff that you've done, to be such a great advocate and put yourself out there, really put yourself out there to the point where, you know, it's caused problems with the law. Let's be honest, like, you know, and for a cause and for a mission and for giving back. And it's just, David, it's a really amazing story. And, you know, you're already, you know, so many people know about the story, but it's always such an enlightening story to continue to tell to a few more people. I joke, when I used to do radio, I had this comedian come on my show, Bert Kreischer, and he was a really big comedian, like big audience. And I think I asked him, I go like, why would you ever come on here? And he goes, cause you know what? He's like, big, deep, you know, deep voice. He's like, any audience that anyone has, I'm going to make them remember me, and I'm going to take them and they're going to come to me. And it's like, you know, so everyone could always learn, you know, about what, you know, what people's wonderful missions on this earth are. And you're a great example of that, man. It's really quite special. And by the way, you know, like, for all the work you're doing with Measure 109, I mean, I think that's crazy how quickly it's gone through here. And I know it's about a couple year regulatory framework now. They're going to be very carefully put together a committee and you know, write this framework. But are you going to be closely to it, you know, at this point now, or is this sort of like you'll
Yeah. So there is going to be a pretty comprehensive post, you know, implementation campaign, basically, to make sure that the right people get appointed to this advisory board, and, you know, we know exactly who we want, or there's shortlists. I mean, it's not like there's only one person. I mean, there's definitely qualified candidates, but we just want to make sure the wrong people don't get in there, and it's looking really good. It's you know, like, people are excited, I think, in the state, even the, you know, the legislators and the governor, or, you know, I think they're proud, and they're that they get to do this program. And so, yeah, but I mean, obviously that can go sideways if we're not diligent. So we're going to be making sure. But I do actually need to join a call here on California. So I don't know if you heard that Senator Scott, Todd, I think it's Scott Wiener, is introducing a decrim bill, a psychedelic decrim bill in California here shortly. Okay. And I'm going to strategize with some allies.
Pretty amazing. Listen, I hope we can stay in touch. I really do. And I'm super grateful for all your time. And yeah, seriously, this is really cool. You're an awesome dude, man. That's all. Like, thank you.
Likewise, man. Yeah, thank you so much. It was rad wrapping out here, and good luck to all of us, and in the beautiful project and passion we share, man.
Thank you, David. We'll stay in touch. Okay.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Cheers.
Bam. All right.
What a beauty. Cheers, Dave Bronner. That was great. Thank you so much, man. Another episode we did of the Psychedelic podcast here for High Times. I don't know. I'm speechless, man. What a brilliant guy.